an appointment so they know that you're coming to see them. You can also just open the door and walk in. They have a receptionist. Let them know why you're there. It's really important. This is really a golden opportunity while you're here in the Capitol to do that. I've spent every day that I've been here, I've spent on the Senate building or the representatives buildings going door to door. And thank you very much. I'm sorry I can't stay at the rally with you because I've really got some assignments I need to get done today. And surprisingly, they're in their offices a lot now because they're setting up new offices. A lot of them have just moved. So you want to verify their room numbers on the internet.
Are they there now?
Some of them are there right now today. A lot are working the weekend.
They wouldn't let me in today.
I'm on my way. If the door's unlocked, you can walk right in.
I'll go with you.
Okay, I'm on my way. I have a bike here, and I'm going to go do that. Thank you very much, and thank you very much for putting this out there, guys. And thank you to Jessica Denson. Lights on. Stand up and stand out. Be brave. Be courageous. And who else wants to try and say something about this issue? Josh, are you back here? You want to entertain us some more? I wish I had a song to sing for you, but I don't know how to sing.
That's all right. That's all right.
Karaoke.
Okay, so who, just to get familiar with him, we know that you guys have been intermingling and meeting and greeting, and we're so in it together. And I would like to know, like, anybody here from West Coast, California, Washington, Oregon? Anybody come from that? I did. Yeah. Where from?
Seattle, Washington.
Out of Washington. Did you come? Did you drive in, fly in? Did you get here today?
I came in last night.
And so, what was the driving force? What brought you to Washington D.C. this weekend?
Defend the Constitution.
All right, yes, that's where we all are. Okay, where anybody else from West Coast? We're coming on back this way into the Midwest. Anybody from where? Where are you from?
I'm from Ohio.
And you got here when?
I came in yesterday afternoon.
And so, what was your driving force behind coming?
Well, I've been seeing a lot of stuff that's been happening in this country. Not really sure what to do for a while, but then when I heard about this march, I decided, you know what, I can finally do something about it now.
Right. Have you ever marched before?
Yeah, I once participated in a women's march around the time they overturned Roe v. Wade in my hometown, Denton.
Welcome. Anybody else, Midwest folks? Who's here? All right, I interviewed you.
I'm from Texas, Houston, Texas.
All right.
And I came out because I have to do something. I cannot do nothing. I can't.
Right.
And this was an opportunity that came up, and I can't afford to wait until the 18th to come and protest.
Right. Yeah. We're 48 hours out, right? I mean, like this is a do or die. I keep saying it, do or die, now or never. And so, welcome from Texas. I'm sure it's not this weather in Texas, right? It's not quite this cold, right? Well, don't leave it up to Ted Cruz. Anyway, who else? Who is here from Midwest, Texas, Oklahoma? Anybody? Arizona. All right. Tell us about the political climate where you in the town that you live. Just there in that really critical state.
Well, I'm in Tucson, so we're purple, and we're run mostly by Democrats. Yay! So it's a lot nicer there than a lot of other parts of Arizona.
Right. And when did you get here?
I got here 2 days ago, last minute.
Well, you are on the right side of history. I will say that. Okay, who else from in the middle of the country? Anybody else? All right, we're gonna do the mobile interview and go all throughout the crowd here.
Drove in from Chicago, came in right before the event started yesterday, drove all night, didn't go to the Capitol afterwards, went and took a nap.
Understandable. All right. Okay, who here from the Southeast? I know I don't sound like I'm from the South, do I? Yeah, those long syllables. I'll tell you about myself. I'm one of the grassroots organizers here with Jessica Denson, and she's going to be coming in just a minute with some special guests just to let you guys know what's happening. But we've got several grassroots organizers here that we have really done this and pulled this off in the last week. And but I hail from Nashville, Tennessee, but I've been in West Hollywood, California for the last 16 years, and so I'm very. There's a dichotomy there where I grew up and where I live now, very different political and cultural climates, and so I believe that it's power in what we are doing. There is power in peacefulness, and let me tell you this, folks. No matter what, like I say, you can call me anything. You can call me conspiracy theorist. You can call me blue. I don't care. This is do or die, and this is our moment. This is about a moment, and you're part of that. And you can say your story will be that you were here, no matter what the outcome is. That you were here and you did everything you can. You made the sacrifice, and you knew what was important and what is priority. And you know, if you watch Jessica, if you watch anybody that's been on the train with us, I've been saying that all this whole week. It's like we're all in the same train, we're going in the same direction. That everyone is like, yeah, we're concentrating on the wrong things right now. This is a button that we can push. It's a legal constitutional lever that we can pull, right? We can do that. And just like you can't be under 35 you can't be, you have to be a native born citizen like that. Like you can't do 2 out of 3. Like you've got to do all 3. And that's what, it's just so plain. And so there's lots of mis and disinformation, and we want to clarify, I want to talk about that stuff with you guys and with the folks that are coming today and tomorrow. And just wanted to welcome you and let you know that we're coming from all different directions. Even the people in our core team, we're all from different parts of the country. We've been on Zoom calls and just trying to make this happen. And isn't this a miracle? Like, look at this. Like, look what we have. Look where you're standing and what we are getting to do in this moment. It's this iconic, beautiful picture, and you're a part of it, right? Give yourselves a hand. Yes, yes, yes.
I just want to say that I've written to a lot of friends who want to be here. I mean, there's dozens of people I've communicated with who say, I wish I could go, I just can't make it. So for everyone here, I think there's probably dozens, hundreds, thousands, I would guess really millions in the country who would love to be here if only they knew about it or could get here. A week is not enough time for enough people to plan to come here. So I really appreciate all you coming here. I didn't come all that far, just Connecticut. But anyway, just want to say we represent millions of people in this country who feel exactly the same way we do. This is just the tip of the iceberg.
Hi, I'm from Indiana. If you're on Twitter, I am Shelly Sire. A lot of you reached out to me. I'm here if you want to talk. This is it, do or die, like everyone said. We cannot accept a fascist dictator in our democracy. It's for the future, it's for the children. Save the children. Do not install an insurrectionist into our presidency.
My name is Margie Ray, and I'm a transgender woman. You know, I don't pass that well. I look like an old man, but I'm really an old lady. You know what? At least I'm valid. At least I'm not disqualified from being an American citizen. Donald Trump is disqualified from being president again. And he wants to erase me? I don't think so. Who's next?
Trans rights! Trans rights!
He should be in jail already. He should have been in jail. Looks like they're going to try and sentence him on Friday. And what are they going to do? They're going to say, oh, get out of here. We don't want you in our jail. Now, is that the way any of the rest of us here would be treated by the courts if we were found guilty of 34 felonies? I don't think so. If he wants to erase me, trans rights, transgender rights.
Trans rights!
That's right.
Trans rights.
I'm done with what I have to say. Somebody else can take this mic.
Sir, I'm really sorry. I missed the first part of your speech. Can you do this speech again? Okay. No.
Can I do the speech again? My first part is where it's actually banned now, sir. My name is Margie Ray, and I'm a transgender woman. And I'm valid, and Donald Trump is disqualified.
That's right. You're valid.
Thank you.
Hi there, I am Aaron from Tennessee. I am 26, so during the 2016 election, I was 18. It was the first time I could vote. I look around and I see a lot of older faces. Where are the young people? Are we not the ones going to inherit this nation? I see a lot of older faces, and I want to say thank you, because y'all were the ones paving the path for us. Y'all were the ones doing the gay rights movement. Y'all were the ones doing the civil rights movement. And now you're here again, paving the way for democracy and protecting it. Thank you so much. And I'm glad to have you. Why is the younger demographic the ones that don't vote?
Because they don't have the money to get here. That's why they're not here. They can't get good jobs because they can't get a good education because they can't afford it. We are killing them.
Exactly.
Talk about housing. Give her the microphone. Yeah.
Yeah, the job economy.
Young people would love to be here. They would absolutely love it, but they cannot afford it because minimum wage is $7.25 and they are having to work 2, 3, 4 jobs just to pay the bills. Rent is too expensive. I have been teaching for 26 years and I cannot afford insurance in Texas. And if I had the insurance, I would still have to pay my deductible before I ever got it from the school district that I work in. Young people cannot afford to live, and they know it, and it's killing them, and they are dying because they're so disappointed in the rest of us. We were not good stewards. We allowed trickle-down economics to take away the stability that we had in the early 80s. It started with Reagan, and it's been getting worse ever since. Elon Musk made more while I've been doing this speech than I have all year. It's not okay.
No!
Eat the rich. Taxation. Taxation. Tax them. They should pay more taxes than I do. I pay 22%. If Elon Musk paid 22% in taxes, all of us would have health care. All of us would have housing. All of us would have free education. All of us would not have to worry about paying bills and keeping our houses and keeping our apartments. All of us would be okay if Elon Musk paid 22%. Just him. Just him. Tax the rich. Pay their share. 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 Thank you.
Picking up on the teaching and the school side of things. So I've taught in a few different schools, and I did notice that in many of the poorer districts, you know, life is life. I mean, you're not going to change the way people behave. Nature, human beings have changed. Society has changed. It used to be you had dozens of children because most of them died. So we had a sex drive that made us have sex a lot. We can't help it. I mean, it's just something we do. So the problem is that people get pregnant. Women get pregnant, and sometimes they don't mean to. And sometimes you have single parents because someone died, or for whatever reason. I remember many kids whose mothers or fathers worked a couple of jobs just to be able to afford rent and food, and very often they couldn't stay home to make breakfast for their kids. This was a pretty common problem, and the kids wouldn't take care of themselves. The mother might be too tired to come home and make breakfast because she worked all night. So why not give them breakfast at school so they can learn? Because a kid who is malnourished, and I've seen plenty of them come to school, no breakfast, tired, haven't slept, You're paying 20, 30, 40,000, whatever it is, to teach a kid that much money to go to school and learn, and they're not learning anything because they can't keep their eyes open. They're malnourished, they're tired, they haven't gotten the calorie count they need. If we just give the food, and it doesn't cost that much if you do it on a massive scale, and real food and good food, decent food, not processed food, that lifts up the whole society. Though everybody living in what looks like a ghetto could be a beautiful place because people there would get better educations. They'd have more energy. They'd work better. They'd be better citizens. Instead, you push them into poverty, and then you have problems with crime. There's no sense in that at all. It's ridiculous. And it's not what this country's supposed to be about. This is a country of the people, by the people, for the people, and not Donald Trump.
Hey, I'm John. I'm from Maryland. I'm not going to rehash everything that's been said. There's just so much on the line. The reason why we're here today is because this really is the last chance to prevent a lot of the horrible stuff that's coming down the pipe from happening. The 14th Amendment, Section 3 is very clearly written. The folks who we elect can read the Constitution themselves. They can read what it says. They can read that it just takes a vote to put the Constitution out there, and at that point, then they need 2/3 of both houses to allow Donald Trump to take office. This is serious business in part because of everything that everyone else, I mean, you could be here for days trying to describe why this is going to end badly. But this really is our last shot at doing something about it. And as someone was saying, there just aren't enough young people out here. I don't think we know the stakes for our future. So I really hope that the people that we elect will uphold their oaths and grow a spine.
We may not be successful this weekend. And that plunges us into a new part of history where there are fundamental problems that led to this moment that will still need to be addressed. And the only way we can do that is if we all do it together. Our brothers and sisters who wear red ties, they're still our brothers and sisters. They're still the only people we have to work with. So anyone we know who has a more conservative bent than us, we need them as our allies in the future. Moreover, I think it'll help all of America if we take care to understand what it's like to have different perspectives in us so that we can unify and not make fun of, especially when we have a big microphone. Especially then, I think we want to understand and speak from that place of understanding. The Constitution really is for all of us. And so by understanding each other, by especially connecting with the pain of every one of our American brothers and sisters, we can best come together and address the problems that we will be facing that we've never known before. So I think if we aren't successful this weekend, one of the things for us to focus on is, as an American who loves our country, or an American who loves every other American. No shame in having been deceived by Donald Trump's incredibly skillful rhetoric, lies also. Yes, and there is an entire media ecosystem, not just on the right, pretty much the whole of it, which can many skillful people crafting a narrative that would deceive most any of us. And so those who hold different views than us, it's not entirely on them, but they've been taken advantage of just as we've all been taken advantage of in some way or another. And so it's through seeing the goodness, the shared human values loving family, friends, nature, all the opportunities to express ourselves, to develop excellence, is through seeing that in each other and unifying around these shared human values that we gain the power to influence Washington in the direction we need. If instead we are laughing at each other, mocking each other, libtards, or whatever the insults might be, we don't together have the power to influence Washington. So through understanding, compassion, love for each other, maybe we can unify and turn this around in the coming years. Thank you all.
I don't want to offend anybody who has religious beliefs, because I think they all come to the same path eventually, if people just take the time to talk with one another. If you think about the book of Leviticus, it's really about people who had just fled captivity and were trying to build a new nation. They were isolated. There weren't very many of them, relative to people around them. They were surrounded by enemies, so they needed to increase their numbers. Well, what's the next book in the Bible? It's Numbers, because they increased the numbers. We've got people in power now who want to decrease our numbers in this country vastly. Just because these people look different, just because they may speak a different language or have a different creed, that doesn't mean they're not Americans and don't believe in the American ideal. We should be uniting people in this country and uniting people around the world to be our allies, because that's what Russia is going to try to do. They want us to deliberately alienate everyone in the world. That's what they've got Donald Trump doing. They've got him casting people out of this country who are going to go back to their place and say, America's not that great after all. That government actually stinks. They don't have a mechanism for keeping somebody like Donald Trump, a tyrant, a would-be dictator, no mechanism to keep a fascist out of power. But we do have such a mechanism. It's the Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, and Congress has to employ it or we're doomed. Seriously, think about it.
In speaking about young people, I can say that I think that a lot of young people think that things have been this way, feel that they've been they can't do anything about whatever our lawmakers decide to do. And so they have dropped out. I have talked to a lot of people about coming out here. They have said that they don't think that anybody's going to do anything. And so they've dropped out. So then we have nations outside of ours that are also going to be subject to whatever tyranny is wrought upon our country. And I think that in order to be good citizens, good global citizens as a nation, that our lawmakers should care. Our lawmakers should do whatever they can to stop this. And it's very simple. It may not succeed, but it's definitely worth trying. And in my opinion, Democrats have a lot more to lose by not trying this than they have if they try and fail.
Hello everyone. My name is Ingrid and I'm from New York. And I have always considered myself one of the 14th Amendment 14.3 amplifiers. I am very active on Twitter and I've been pushing the 14th Amendment .3 for a long time. Matter of fact, people told me they didn't know what I was talking about. But one thing we have to know is that that amendment is there for a reason. It was ratified after the Civil War. It was there to make sure that it protects, okay, thank you, that it protects us from tyranny.
Yes.
That is what's there. I don't care if you're independent, Democrat, Republican, it doesn't matter. What we have in common is our U.S. Constitution.
Yes.
Okay? I am an immigrant. I came here in 1969. Okay? I became a citizen, believe it or not, January 6, 1989. And I want you to know something, is that I do believe that this land is the land of the free and the home of the brave. And if we don't come out and show our politicians that we want at least honor the Constitution. Our politicians, the regular ones, take the oath, like me as a citizen, to defend, to protect, and defend the Constitution. Our president takes the oath to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution. I will hope that President Biden, if you're listening, Merrick Garland, if you're listening, Kamala Harris, if you're listening, Hakeem Jeffries, Senator Schumer, please, we must honor our Constitution. Because tell me, how, I'm going to say it, in the hell are we going to take, the president-elect is going to take the oath on the 20th when he has dishonored it? So how is he going to raise his hand to take an oath to the Constitution when he doesn't care about the Constitution? He doesn't care about us. He incited an insurrection on January 6, 2021, and we can never forget that. And we have to make sure that our Congress does, please. And another thing, let's not let the Supreme Court tell us what's in the 14.3, because we could read, okay? We believe in education. We want to expand education. We don't want to take education away from anybody, okay? Again, in this country, it's rich of a melting pot of Americans. And we are here, it's cold as hell, but we are here making sure that everybody knows that you have to engage. You have to peacefully protest and let your politicians know that they must disqualify Trump. Well, he's already disqualified according to the 14.3. Make sure he's removed from serving our government again. Thank you.
I'm sorry I keep on talking up here, but I got something else I want to say. There's a reason why Section 3 is self-executing. That means it doesn't really require a vote for it to be true, just like being under 35, just like being foreign-born. If you're an insurrectionist, you can't assume office. And it's a very simple thing. Anyone who creates an insurrection is going to have power in an organization and a willingness to break oaths, right? So if they have the power and the money and the deceitfulness to try to overthrow our government, create an organization to displace our government, then they have the money, power, influence, and deceitfulness to intimidate, bribe, or otherwise interfere with the workings of Congress. And it happens to be, we do have an organization in Congress right now that seems to be doing things like this to many of us. Undermining our Constitution, threatening people, calling judges, threatening judges, jurors, witnesses, lawyers, and people like this to try to prevent them from abiding by the law of the Constitution. This is a large conspiracy. Any such conspiracy large enough to cause an insurrection is large enough to also corrupt Congress. And that's what's keeping them from just simply recognizing he's not qualified as an insurrectionist, just like being under 35, just like being foreign-born, being an insurrectionist disqualifies you. Now, some of the dicta in this Supreme Court decision said, well, first you have to have a vote to see if you can just get rid of those ballots for this or that reason. And in order to do that, you just need a simple majority. Well, this is ridiculous. Why set the bar at 2/3 majority in both houses, which is there to prevent a corrupt Congress from lifting the disqualification? If you have with a simple majority, you can prevent that vote from ever even happening. That's ridiculous. It makes no sense at all. The only thing Congress can do, or should do on Monday, by law, is have a vote to see if they can get 2/3 of the Congress to lift the insurrection. That's it. There should be no other votes. By law, the way the Constitution is written, So, that we're calling upon Congress to do what the Constitution says very clearly, and don't try to confuse us with legal language. We can read the Constitution. We know what it means. Read Section 3. It says an insurrectionist is disqualified, and that is self-executing, and you don't need any other vote except one to try to lift that insurrection. That's it. Check it out.
Insurrectionists can't be president. Insurrectionists can't be president. Insurrectionists can never. Congress do your job.
All right, well, I don't know how I can follow up on that. I am 29 years old. I am one of the few people of my generation who are privileged enough to really be at this rally as was established. And I'd like to think I've lived a pretty privileged life overall. I got a good education, I managed to get a good, well-paying job, and that's what has allowed me to be here. But do you know who isn't so privileged? Pretty much everyone else.
Yep.
Marginalized groups, LGBTQ plus people, immigrants. Pretty much anyone who isn't cis, white, and straight are pretty much doomed to perpetually be in a self-defeating prophecy where they have no choice but to hope that the government will give them a freebie every once in a while when they all know full well that's never going to happen, especially when someone like Donald Trump is in charge. Someone who has broken property for the sake of proving a point. A point that the Congress apparently gave him a pass over. And that cannot stand according to the Constitution. We know what the Constitution says, and it is up to the Supreme Courts to uphold that.
Grow a spine, Congress.
Oh, grow a spine, Congress, indeed. And I know and I believe that because I'm in such a privileged position, it is all the more my duty to look out for everyone around me right here.
Hey, look, I'm also 29 years old.
I love that number. I love that number.
Only truth tellers,
I'm
please.
also Navy vet, 14 years United States Navy. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I'm also a United States Navy vet. 14 years United States Navy, and of course 29 years old. Now, let me ask you guys a question. Do you think we got here by accident? Do you think that we got to this place in time by accident?
No.
Okay, let me explain some of the operatives we got here. Well, there's about 150 billionaires around the world that control the world's economy.
Yep.
And those billionaires are puppet masters. They have puppet masters all around the world. They have puppet masters here in Congress. And if you think for 1 second that these people here in Congress don't have strings attached to them, they do. Why do they have strings attached to them? Well, they have strings attached to them because they want to be reelected. They want to stay and make cushy jobs. I don't know if anybody here has had a congressional job. That's pretty good. You get all the bells and whistles. You're treated like a prince, a duke, an earl, wherever you go. The red carpet is thrown out for you. Who wouldn't want to keep a job like that? So let's say you're a new guy. Mr. Smith goes to Washington. You're a new guy. You're going coming to Washington and you want to make changes. You really want to make changes. And then you run into the guys who've been there all these years and say, look, guy, I can appreciate your position, but you're going to make no changes here. We own this house. We own these committees. You're going to do what we say. So those strings are all attached to them. And the reason why they're saying that is because the billionaires that I talked about, they're controlling it. They're saying, hey, look, unless you want to be primaried, unless you want to not make the next election, unless you want to keep this cushy job, well, you're going to do things the way that we want you to do them. So as a result, the billionaires, including Donald Trump, he's one of them. Now, the thing about Donald Trump is this. He's a billionaire, but he's a billionaire that's trying to join the social elite. They don't want him. They don't want him because he's a useful idiot. They want to use him as a tool. They want to use him as a tool to go ahead and exact whatever it is they want to do. I mean, Russia's the same way. Putin doesn't respect him. Putin sees him as a tool. He sees him as a tool that he can manipulate. All you got to do is tell Donald Trump, hey, look, your hair looks good. And you too can be Secretary of State. Okay? So they know he's a useful idiot. So all these people, all these billionaires out there know this. They know that these guys in Congress can be manipulated by threatening them with their jobs. So if you think that these guys are going to come out, they've already made whatever decision they want to make right now. We are out here in solidarity to make sure that these guys are held, their feet is held to the fire, and that I hope it works in regards. But keep in mind, a lot of these guys are on puppet strings. They're being manipulated by the billionaires, and they're going to make the decision based on not what the American people want, but based on what their own greed for money and power. That includes especially Donald Trump. So when he gets in there and he decides he wants to make things happen, he's going to do it in his own best interest. And the people who support him don't realize. They don't realize that they're not. It's not red. And I tell this on. I have a TikTok podcast that I do. As a matter of fact, I was up there for about 2 hours, from 10 o'clock to about 12 o'clock, and I was giving a live stream, and I was cut off by TikTok. I consider it a badge of honor. I got a little bit too deep in the weeds, and they decided to cut me off. And they cut me off because when you get too close to the truth, it's like, hey, no, you can't say that. So anyway, so my idea on all this is, I came down here because I wanted to make my voice heard, because I want my children to know, 5 years from now, 10 years, hey, Dad, what did you do in this time in our lifetime? What did you do to come out here? Now, what did you do to push back against this guy? And I'm saying, well, I sat home, watch TV. Now, there's a lot of people at home who want to be here, and I talk to them on my live, I talk to them on my streams, and these guys want to be here, but they just can't be here. Besides, as I said, a number of reasons why. It was short notice. It takes a lot of money to get here. Luckily, I live in the area, so I can come down here. But there are a lot of people who don't have that opportunity. So, but as I said, the truth hurts. But keep in mind, these people in Congress, a lot of them are manipulated, especially the guys on the other side of the aisle. I'd like to think that people on the left side of the aisle, or the blue, have some morals and scruples and are looking out for the best interests of the country. I would like to believe that. I do believe it, and I would like to continue to believe that. The other guys are just bought and paid for. These guys are bought and paid for, and that's why they act the way they want to act. They know who this guy is. Anybody, a blind man can see who this guy is. Anybody can see who this guy is, but they choose to ignore it because of money, power, greed, and political ambitions. Okay? That's my 2 cents, and hello to everybody on TikTok, and my daughters, and my wife. Thanks.
I was told to grab the mic and grab the mic.
Okay.
Hi. Yeah. Don't want to talk too loud. Yeah, I woke up this morning watching a YouTube video about kind of a synopsis of the Supreme Court decision on this 14th Amendment, this stopping this happening. Mentioned that if you're an enemy of our Constitution, then you're an enemy of our constitutional republic. So all you have to do is establish that Donald Trump is the enemy of our Constitution, which I don't believe would be too hard to do. He's also an agent of a foreign principal, and that's not hard to figure out either. And since he's not registered, that makes him a secret agent of a foreign principal. All right, so if you go out of your way to make some plain English into some strange ruling that's above and beyond anything logical, then you're aiding and providing comfort for an enemy, and that is exactly what treason is.
Yes, exactly.
So we have 5 Supreme Court justices that already have committed treason, and it pretty well can see this is a grand conspiracy to overtake our country.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, so if anybody is going to qualify this person who's also a pathological liar, a narcissist, and a psychopath, and yes, and you're going to qualify this person who's an insurrectionist, a pathological liar, a narcissist, and a psychopath,
sexual predator,
to be in charge of the most power in the whole world. Trust me, you are committing treason.
Yes, yes, yes.
And that's what I have to say, and I'm sure it just came to me. Okay, remember, this is where we're pushing on the 6th, and we got to get it together so we can present it rock solid. Okay?
Thank you.
Just to follow up, the Supreme Court did not overturn Colorado's finding that Trump is an insurrectionist. Is anybody here from Colorado?
I grew up there.
Well, certainly. Thank you, Colorado, for that case.
Illinois,
And Illinois and Maine, yeah.
Maine and Michigan.
That's true.
And the House. They both found it.
Quite right, the second impeachment. And also, heard of a little thing called the January 6th committee?
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's not forget that.
Let's not forget that either. Just a slight correction, I actually came in 2 nights ago, it feels a little longer than that.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are getting ready for the rest of this proceedings. If you don't mind vacating the area off of the stairs, that way we can get the speakers up here and they can get the attention that they actually deserve. Okay, great. You know, everybody don't mind going down off the stairs.
Great.
Check on two.
So, I'm live on News 2 Share, is the name of my channel. Oh, nice. Yeah. YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter.
Thank you for everybody coming today. We are getting ready for this fabulous day.
Use the number 2 Share.
Thank you. Thank you.
The gentleman that has been filming right here, if you go up to his badge and get the information on his badge, you'll be able to see all of the comments that were made here, by the group right here, and he is streaming live right now. Are you?
The outlet is called News 2 Share. News the number 2. It's called News 2 Share. News the number 2 Share.
.com?
On Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter.
Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Everyone got that?
News the number 2 Share.
Okay. It was live. So if you want to call somebody and tell them it's going to be live again, correct?
It just stays there.
Oh,
yeah,
it stays here. Yeah, but I'm saying
you can rewatch it anytime.
When this event goes through.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you have anybody at home that wants to watch right now and see what's going on when the event actually, the speakers start, you can tell them to go to that site and watch it live right now. Does anyone know if the official organizers here have a link that they can share right now that they're doing? Does anyone know a link that can be shared? It's really important that you can text your friends and text people a link so they can see what's happening live right now. So if there's anyone that can hear my voice that knows the official link. There is? Oh, okay. Can we have that link, or can someone tell us what that link is?
News to Share. If you go to YouTube.
What we just said?
If you go to YouTube, News to Share, it shows up as streaming live, and it's about a half-second delay from what we're saying for it showing up on YouTube.
News to Share with the number 2, not spelled, but any news and then the number 2 and then share.
If you just go to YouTube, if you go to YouTube and search for News to as a number share, it shows up as streaming live right now.
If you want a share link, I mean, it's confusing because share's in the name, but you share the News to Share link from YouTube. Yeah, all right, thank you.
Okay, any more technical advice or any technical things that you want to say so everyone can be informed? I know people yesterday were trying to find out, how do we find out our senator? How do we find out our congressman? How do we find out where their office is? The easiest one for the House of Representatives website is house.gov.
house.gov. That one is all Republican and Democrat. House.gov for any House representative. For Congress, for Senate, it's Senate.gov. House.gov and Senate.gov. Okay. Any more technical information or anything that you want to share? There's only 16 more days before January 20. If something happens and something doesn't go through on the 6th, if we don't block it then it's only 14 more days after that. What can happen? What can we do between the 6th and the 20th? So if anyone has any technical information on where to share ideas or where to share information, how to keep in touch with each other. Someone approached me and they wanted to have my name so they could add it to a list of contacts of the people who wanted to be contacted. Is someone here that asked me that question, and so they can be on a list that can keep in track of everybody here? See that gentleman. Does anyone know a list that you'd want to put your name or information on so you can get information about this event? I know that our official site, March, I'm sure is going to have some information, but if anyone knows anything else.
One last thing, guys, I apologize. They have asked for you to move down one more plane. Right now we're blocking the actual camera that has the live shot. We want to make sure that everybody is able to get in here, speakers and all. So if you don't mind just going right down there for me, we would greatly appreciate it.
Okay, so there is a camera behind us that's giving a live shot. So from time to time, some people that are in the center right here, can you just please turn around and monitor in case someone is blocking or making some weird, stupid thing in front of the camera? So kind of self-monitor this little aisle corridor right here. So make sure that the people who are watching aren't distracted by anything that happens from this camera. Any more information that people would like to share or questions they would like to have answered? Yes.
Yeah, so as a young American, I just wanted to know that if, okay, so hopefully in the Trump administration, Valve will finally update TF2. Thank you.
Try not to give in comments about, anything just other than the questions and answers.
Yeah, there's a People's March on January 18th as well. That is one of here in Washington, D.C. There will be more information. It's a women's march. Yes, it started as a women's march. Yep. So womensmarch.com.
Womensmarch.com. Okay.
I just have one comment about what to do after the 20th. What I'm going to do, I ask everyone to remember what John Lewis, Congressman Lewis said, and that is good trouble. What I plan on doing after the 20th, good trouble. So that's what you
I just want to say thank you so much for the person who came from Canada. She brought a big stack of signs that she handmade for us, at least 15, 20, I'm guessing. Is that about right? Could you just say a little bit about something? You told me about how you care about your friends on the side of the border. Just come up with something, yes.
Important. I mean, the American founders basically they fought against the autocrats. They fought against oligarchs. Our grandfathers fought the fascists, and our fathers fought against Russia. Well, now, basically all of those are taking over your country. They have actually made you believe that you are supposed to revere all of these criminals, these fascists, and basically the insurrectionists in order to make your America great again. Whereas it's really, you're handing them over all of your money and your country, your freedom, to just for nothing. You're going to be very poor. You're giving up your freedom and your place in the world. Everybody is basically asking me, like people from the Netherlands, people from Europe, people from Canada, are Americans really this stupid? Are they really this dumb? And it's like, well, it would appear that half of them actually are. They actually have been made to believe that this is what they're supposed to do in order to make their country greater, and whereas really this is how they are going into the swamp. So in order to make your country great again and actually uphold your constitution, that an insurrectionist cannot be your president.
I just wanted to say a couple things that have been on my mind. I think about what Trump says himself. He says that I can lie to the American people. As long as he says I didn't do it, that he will get away with it. The American people they're not being fed truthful information. I come from Billings, Montana. It is a very red state. We don't have any Democratic representatives, and in my state, my family, they believe that the Republican Party stands for America. They stand for capitalism, which to them is what America is, but they're living in a reality where it's 1960 and the economy is good and everything is, corporations are expanding, is really good. But if you look at our climate, then you should see that it is getting colder, it is getting warmer. We're not having as much snow. In Montana, we used to have a lot of snow when I was a kid, but we get 1 week of snow. There's nothing. We are letting these people that want to run our country, run our earth into the ground for corporate profits.
Okay, just one last thing that I think we're missing right now. There's a person who I was hoping to meet, and I think we know who we're talking about. Jessica Denson. Jessica Denson has been a voice for the voiceless who think things are impossible. Let me say that again. Yeah, Jessica is here. Jessica, I'm gonna say that again, is a voice for the voiceless, for those who think things are impossible. How many people know Jessica's story, what she did? Okay, how many people do not know what she did back into, a few people didn't know. When you go to the story, you're gonna find out that she filed a lawsuit on her own against Donald Trump's organization for the campaign, 2016 campaign. And those words of Jessica being a voice for the voiceless came from this lady right here.
Yeah, Jessica's, here I'm going to speak. Jessica voided an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement with the Trump White House, because it was a shit show. And how does George? He's not here, so maybe I shouldn't have mentioned his name. George Conway referred to the Trump White House. He left because it was a shit show in a dumpster fire. Those are his exact words. And that's why Jessica wanted to leave, but she had an NDA. And, we're ready. Okay. So anyway, she won her suit against Trump. He can be beaten in court, folks.
And I think, for myself, that's why I'm here, because of what Jessica Denson is promoting and her podcast. So before this starts, let's give the biggest applause and thank you and whatever noise you want to make for Jessica Denson. Okay, without further delay, could someone please come over and take over the microphone and just give us the information that we're going to start? Just take it off. Okay, is the person going to be up there? Okay.
All right, give us one moment. He's going to initiate.
Justice, we are past fear, we are fed up eating your shit because you think your so-called black friend validates your weakness and erases your racism.
We need, there it is. Hello, America! Hello, world! I'm Chris. So, friends, we've been building this movement in flight starting only about a week ago. In a group meeting last night, Jessica Denson, and well, let's have another big cheer for Jessica. This is awesome. She's been a light to us. She's been our foundation, our anchor, and a light on that's really drawn us and helped organize us and really made this happen. And she asked me to start with some remarks, and that's why, and tell you why I'm here. So much of what I'm going to say is going to be in a spirit of love and fellowship with all Americans, including those, sadly, who have been told or conditioned to ignore and even hate us for having different views. I ask that those folks please make a little time to listen to us. I know you think the soul of this nation and the future of our children is important. Well, we do too. So we ask you to hear us out. That's all we ask. Now, a lot of the division is being driven by people's interpretation of religious matters, so I want to touch on that. I'd like to offer some views on the subject that I think align with those of people of any religion or creed. And there are other people living in peace among us and align with the views of good people of many faiths around the world, many of whom will come here because our Constitution promises the same thing that their faiths promise or strive for. Right, I gotta break the wind here. Oh, I shouldn't have said break wind, should I? Okay. A Christian thinker named C.S. Lewis wrote that fascist dictatorships like Hitler's or Stalin's, and let me just make a point here, Stalin was a fascist. He's not really a communist. He used the communist label because it didn't sound as bad as fascist. And I'm personally a capitalist, but I believe in regulated capitalism with elements of socialism because it works. You know, if you put too much power in the hands of too few people, regardless of how you do it, you're going to end up with fascism. And that's what happened in Russia. Too much power because of communism in the hands of too few people. That's my view anyway. Anyway, fascists like Hitler and Stalin, their organizations have, according to C.S. Lewis, have the structure of hell. Hierarchies wherein the will of lesser demons is consumed by the spiritual cannibalism of their immediate superiors under the leader Lucifer. Under the leader Lucifer, who consumes the will of all. That's kind of like the guy at the top, a Hitler, a Putin, a Trump. They're spiritual cannibals who devour the will of others. A most extreme case would be slavery. Meanwhile, Lewis says, in heaven, the angels live freely in perfect harmony because they are guided by love and understanding. Free not only to act as they see fit, but also free from fear and want. I think the latter is the sort of society our founders intended. But many of us have good reason to fear that the former, the structure of hell, is what Trump and his followers intend. If someone tells you, and I'm addressing folks in the MAGA movement, if someone tells you to do terrible things to other souls because they say God demands it, I suggest to you that person is a demon in disguise, swallowing your soul and condemning you to their hell. Now, I am what I call a Christian agnostic, and I'd like to say all people are agnostics, but most don't know it. That's sort of a joke if you know what agnostic means. It's not funny, but it's kind of a decent way to suggest that we try harder to distinguish between belief and knowledge. That's something that, in my view, a lot of people in politics aren't doing. They have beliefs, but they don't investigate. There's a difference between belief and knowledge. It takes some work and can be uncomfortable. But failure to make the distinction between belief and knowledge causes the exact kind of cultural breakdown we see in our society today. Now, personally, as someone who was raised in the Christian tradition, I see Jesus as a brilliant scholar who knew his Tanakh and his Talmud, but found them insufficient for his curious mind. The Old Testament contains vast stores of truth and beauty, but it is also rife with the tragedy of scientific ignorance and the miseries caused by autocracy, imperialism, and colonialism, which were the orders of that day. We do not want to go back, and we are not going back. I see my friend Jesus as a sort of Jewish Socrates, a human who engaged in dialogues with merchants and other travelers, and later with his disciples, seeking new truths and new ways to see the world, challenging old beliefs with new ideas, living in Pax Romana along trade routes that stretched across Europe, Asia, and Africa. He would have been exposed to many schools of thought. For me, his baptism by John symbolizes his humility, his openness to truths that are shared by others. For example, I see the loaves and fishes story as a reference to Diogenes, the cynic, who taught that we are all creatures of appetite that we can master. The water to wine story suggests Epicurus, an atomist, who believed we should enjoy this wonderful human form before we die and decompose. The Passion invokes Zeno, the Stoic, who believed we should reason our way to right action and then have the will to do it, which is what all of you did when you came here today. Those are three wise men of the Roman world, but if you studied other things beside the Bible, you'll see that elements of Buddhism and other traditions are in the New Testament. It feels like the start of a synthesis of important ideas, which we could say is a kind of path to the kingdom of heaven. And that, I think, is the path this nation has striven to be on up until now. The most important words in the Bible are those of Jesus. The MAGA people keep citing Old Testament stuff, but that's like imperialism. That's a nasty world. Now, there are some added passions in the New Testament that I see as kind of ornamental, designed to compete with other religions. And a lot of it, and a lot that has been said about it, seems attempts to pervert the teachings of Jesus just to justify spiritual cannibalism. That's what I see MAGA doing right now. That is until the Enlightenment, which started about 1600. For me, the most important words of Jesus are, "Forgive them, for they know not what they do." Jesus encourages forgiveness, so we talk rather than fight. We need dialogue and understanding, lest we know not what we do, and block out or silence people who we would be better to speak with and try to understand. And our Constitution was founded on that very principle. Our government is supposed to be one in which our representatives truthfully and honorably engage in dialogue. We are to resolve matters by reason and compromise, and for that, truth and goodwill are essential. Truth brings understanding. Understanding brings trust. Trust brings peace. Peace brings unity, prosperity, happiness, and strength. Otherwise, we remain divided, in chaos, and weak, just the way our enemies want us, so they can consume our will. Spiritual cannibalism brings conflict. It requires conflict, and war is destructive, tragic, and expensive, though far less expensive to prevent than fight. So Roosevelt advises, speak softly and carry a big stick. No one has the right to force his or her conceptions of what God wants on others. God is at the nexus of nature and human consciousness. And we're still striving to understand the laws of nature. Science is how we hear God speak through the natural world. No one has any moral or legal right to tell us what God wants, except maybe environmental scientists who are paying really close attention to nature and what's actually happening in the world in which we live right now, not some fantasy notions. And we will fight to our last breath for freedom of conscience. I'm here because a couple of years ago I began closely following the war in Ukraine and Putin's other pieces in play around the world, all part of his stated plan to destroy America and the current world order. And if you watch some Russian propaganda and some things that Russian politicians say, you know that's true. Putin is not our friend. I began to see an alarming correlation between what that brutal dictator and criminal needed to happen and what Trump and Johnson were doing. Could they be so foolish, I thought, as to trust Putin to make a pact of mutual support to achieve tyrannical dominance over their respective continents? It seemed that way. Could we be on the verge of the most tragic and catastrophic betrayal of allies in human history? One that would surely lead to our own destruction and to the death or subservience of our children. I feared intelligence stovepiping might be preventing Washington from seeing the big picture, so last winter I compiled a lot of research and brought my theories to the FBI and Representatives Hayes and Senators Murphy and Blumenthal, and I also pleaded that they call the border bill bluff so as to free the aid to Ukraine. An aide later told me I had given them a holistic picture that had been lacking. And my research and analysis had been brought to foreign intelligence offices here in Washington. So even after 9/11, the intelligence stovepiping seems unresolved, something we better fix fast. I also pleaded that they needed to seize the narrative from Trump. If he can get high ratings from outrageous lies, we should be able to get them with outrageous facts. The problem is that Trump's lies are comfortably simple. I'm almost okay. While the truth is complex to the point that people don't want to hear or believe it. We blame our media and our politicians for the many failures that brought us to this existential crisis for our nation. Nearing the installation into the most powerful office on earth, a cancerously corrupt man whose corruption is already metastasized to our organs of state. So it's up to us as citizens to take action. And here we are today, wise-eyed open, fearful that government of the people, by the people, for the people, could indeed quickly vanish from this world we share. Our first speaker today is Caitlyn Bird, also known as Gotham Girl Blue. Caitlyn has been commenting about American politics on Twitter since 2016 and published essays since 2018. A second-generation New Yorker, Caitlyn got into local politics doing door-to-door canvassing at the age of 3. In 2016, she began speaking out on social media about past, present, and future of the United States with a unique blend of bluntness, humor, and clarity that has informed the pages of the Huffington Post, Bustle, the Boston Globe, The Cut, and Betches Media. She's a monthly columnist for Dame Magazine and weekly co-host of the Betches podcast. She has a big internet presence as, one word, GothamGirlBlue.com. So would you please give a warm welcome to Caitlyn Bird. And I apologize if I went on too long.
Hi, I'm Caitlyn Bird, and you probably don't see people like me in many places because I'm just a regular person. I'm a person who's overlooked by the political establishment in this country because I live in a city, I don't have a college degree, I rent, and I vote in every election. And because I wasn't imagined within the confines of the Constitution when it was written, when those men cooped up in Philadelphia to debate and draft what this country would become, they never imagined that the protections, freedoms, rules, and rights they would enshrine into fundamental law would encompass black lady. So the reason I stand here as a citizen, peaceably petitioning my government for action is because of the 14th Amendment. This is the amendment that granted citizenship to formerly enslaved people and enshrined equality under the law. This is the amendment that solved the broken moral math of the 3/5 compromise. This is the amendment that put the answer for reconciliation and reconstruction of a broken nation into the hands of the only people who could be trusted with it. The 14th Amendment was more than an addition, it was a revolution. An entire renaissance of the American ideal, a claim to freedom that has made our progress possible. But the words on the page could only do so much. Despite the promises of citizenship and equality, enslaved people, my people, were denied and deprived of their basic rights. Despite the new equation for representation, the complexion of power didn't change for long. And as soon as the ramifications of rebellion became clear, the push for forgiveness fell right behind. So while I can be here because of the text of the 14th Amendment, the reason I am here is because the thousands of people over 150 years have done everything in their power to make it real. But the 14th Amendment isn't a triumph. It's an unfinished tragedy. For a long time, those people and their trying, they failed. Terrorists attacked the recently liberated, the corrupt stuffed ballot boxes and consolidated power. The courts, including the Supreme Court, struck down their calls for equality. Also, this country would never include people like me. Although my predecessors would fail and fail and fail time and again to get justice, they never stopped trying. They persisted despite the blood and fire, the neglect and passion, the rulings from a corrupt court that said their citizenship, hard fought and hard earned, was separate and unequal. These were heavy setbacks, real challenges that could not be easily overcome. But because they did not give up, when they started to win, they won big. So as we are faced with a betrayal of the Constitution in our own time, we have to ask ourselves, will we try? On January 20th, 2017, Donald Trump raised his hand and swore an oath that every president has made to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. On January 6, 2021, he broke that oath. Almost 4 years ago, to the day, Donald Trump betrayed our republic for his own selfish whims. To seize power he had not been granted. First by subterfuge, railroading state legislators, attacking election officials, pressuring his own vice president to betray the Constitution. And when he was denied by all of them, he decided he would do it by force. There is no question or confusion about this. The world was a witness to Trump's treachery that day. The mob smashing its way into the Capitol, members of Congress and their staffers running for their lives, the bent and broken bodies of Capitol Police as they formed the thin line of defense, and international leaders looking on in concern and horror, implicitly asking America, are you okay? We were not. We are not. Because after this open attack on the rule of law, on the Constitution, on the Republic itself, Donald Trump got away with it. The House of Representatives wrote up an article of impeachment and passed it.
But the evenly split Senate, still under the control of Senator Mitch McConnell, took its time on the charges, and 43 senators would ultimately be too cowardly to convict. The Department of Justice hemmed and hawed and scuffed and stalled, resulting in too little, too late. And when voters, we the people, tried to get him thrown off the ballot in multiple states, the Supreme Court usurped us by undermining the 14th Amendment, as they have done so many times before. So freed from this responsibility, Donald Trump ran a campaign of lies, distractions, and disinformation, and convinced enough voters in enough places that he was fit for power. But we know better. He doesn't have that authority yet, but his transition has shown us what he will be, and it can be summed up in one word: monarchy. This is a man compelled to take for himself first and foremost, not to serve, but to rule. He has broken numerous ethics laws during his transition, promised to staff our top government agencies with sycophants and toadies, has threatened journalists and political opponents with imprisonment in violation of the First Amendment, openly offers pardons to convicted criminals, seditious criminals who did violence on January 6th, and has taken aim at birthright citizenship because he thinks he can define who is and is not a citizen, again undermining the 14th Amendment. And in response to this dictator in waiting, this dissolution of our Constitution, appeasement, complacency, impotence. There are no more options, they say. Wrap it up. Time to go. Last one out of American democracy. Turn off the lights. But I remember my legacy. I remember who brought me here. I remember what they faced and what they overcame, and I say it's not over. I say we try. Because Section 3 of the 14th Amendment is unambiguous. No person shall be a senator or representative in Congress or elector of president and vice president or hold any office, civil or military, under the United States or under any state who, having previously as a member of Congress or as an officer of the United States or as a member of any state legislature or as an executive or judicial officer of any state, to support the Constitution of the United States, shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof. But Congress may, by a vote of 2/3 of each house, remove such disability. Because the article of impeachment drafted by the House of Representatives, it said this: the Constitution provides that the House of Representatives shall have the sole power of impeachment, and that the President shall be removed from office on impeachment for and conviction of treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. Further, Section 3 of the 14th Amendment to the Constitution prohibits any person engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the United States from holding office under the United States. And those 57 senators who voted to convict, not enough for removal under Article 1, Section 3, but plenty enough for the 14th Amendment, Section 3. guys? Oh, there we go. And those 57 senators who voted to convict, not enough for removal under Article 1, Section 3, but plenty enough for 14th Amendment, Section 3. And the Department of Justice never got a conviction? Well, fortunately, Section 3 enforcement doesn't require that. The Supreme Court tries to protect their seditious sugar daddy, then maybe they should be more careful with their words, because they said no limits are on congressional authority for Section 3, and to me, no limits sounds a lot like can't be argued in front of the court. And while I must and always will respect the decisions of my fellow voters, whether Donald Trump is fit to serve this country after breaking his oath is not up to us. It is up to 2/3 of Congress. People who are vested with the power of our government, people who represent our needs, people who know what it means to take an ironclad oath to the Constitution and keep it. So that is what we are asking them to do. There are people who will scoff at this, a political establishment complicit in their own fecklessness, who will say we're sore losers or hypocrites or just as bad as Donald Trump. But this is not the same. This is the text of the Constitution, without wild theories or novel interpretations. This is a process that has been applied to thousands of people across multiple elections, with legislation successful and unsuccessful that can be accessed by anyone with the time and patience to scour the congressional record. This isn't new or outrageous. And when it is taken up in Congress, there will be no mob threatening their lives to force them to comply. There will just be lawmakers upholding their sworn duty. The people who act like January 6th was normal, that it was acceptable, that the sin of its violence and violation can be swept away by getting 49% of the vote, those are the people who are wrong. Even with all of the lies and distortions, a vast majority of the country thinks that what happened on January 6, 2021 was wrong. They think it was a violation of our democracy. They agree that people who did violence that day should be locked up. And they will not object if we ask for the people who incited them to be held to account. So that's what it means to believe in the Constitution, and that's what most of us do. So Democrats in Congress can keep their oaths by demanding that Donald Trump atone for breaking his. Refuse to certify his electoral votes until an amnesty act is drafted and passed by 2/3 of both houses. And to get Democratic votes, the margin that they need, this amnesty must meet Democratic terms. First, that Donald Trump, in a written statement and recorded address, acknowledged that he lost the 2020 election, acknowledged that his actions to undermine, question, and overturn the result were unconstitutional, and apologized for the harm his actions caused. Finally, to take an additional oath to swear that he will never attack the constitutional order again. For a normal man in normal times, none of this would be much to ask. But Donald Trump has taken us to new and unprecedented places, convinced us through the sheer scale of his corruption that those of us asking for decency, for kindness, for fairness, for the rules to be followed are the ones who are incorrect. That an apology for the greatest domestic attack on our government since the Civil War is some kind of unfair imposition. That a margin of 2 million votes makes him a king, but that Biden's 8 million votes made him a loser. He has planted a bloom of cowardice in the chest of every elected official in this country. so that that even the people who answer to Democratic voters say to us that there is nothing that they can do. But they are wrong, because this man is unprecedented, but the tools to deal with him are not. We have been through harder times before, and we have met them. This memorial is a testament to that. And when I say that Donald Trump is disqualified from holding any office defined by this Constitution, and Congress must make that clear, I am not telling them to win, I am telling them to try to fulfill the revolution that the 14th Amendment represents. So trying is what my ancestors did. Trying is what created the amendments. Trying has made all of us here today possible. This is the new birth of liberty Lincoln described in the address etched into these hallowed walls. And so I speak, not only as an American in our modern moment, but with a plea from every generation that has come to cherish this Constitution. Just try. For the nameless dead of Colfax, Louisiana, Vicksburg, Mississippi, Wilmington, North Carolina, Tulsa, Oklahoma, and 1,000 other places who cried out for the protection of equality. Just try. For those tired, poor, huddled masses yearning to breathe free, who built lives for their children and their children with the beauty of birthright citizenship. Just try. For those who took aim at segregation, who demanded an end to Jim Crow, who never wavered from the promise of this country. Just try to defend against enemies of the Constitution, foreign and domestic. Just try. And because we are Americans, we don't give up, least of all on ourselves. And while this politics refuses to see people like me, the Constitution was not imagined for me. It now belongs to us, me and mine, because we tried and succeeded at making it better. Now it is our turn to try for the ones who come after us, and it starts with standing up for the Constitution and against Donald Trump. Love to the Constitution. Love to the Republic, love to the United States, and love and blessings to all of you. Thank you. Let's fight for what we believe in.
Now, after the roll.
We will never give up. We will never concede. We're going to walk down to the Capitol. I said, something's wrong here, something's really wrong.
The 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution. If you haven't introduced yourself, here's something of an introduction. Section 3 specifically is about disqualification from office, and it so reads.
No person shall be a senator or representative in Congress, or elector of president and vice president, or hold any office, civil or military, under the United States or under any state, who having previously taken an oath as a member of Congress, or as an officer of the United States, or as a member of any state legislature, or as an executive or judicial officer of any state, to support the Constitution of the United States, shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same, or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof. But Congress may, by a vote of 2/3 of each house, remove such disability. Meaning,
If someone had sworn an oath to support the Constitution,
like serving this perfect dictatorship,
and then took part in rebellion,
like Jan 6,
or helped the enemy,
like giving aid and comfort
lawmakers by promising pardons. They as in criminal Trump, are banned from holding positions in the government. Though Congress can remove this ban with a 2/3 vote, which in this case, should members of Congress even think about doing this, would be a betrayal of their oaths of office. He's an unadjudicated insurrectionist. You need not know anything else. He's an adjudicated insurrectionist. You need not know anything else.
In the history of humanity, democracy is an extremely rare and fragile and precarious and transitory thing. Abraham Lincoln knew that when he spoke from the battlefield and vowed that government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from the earth. But he was speaking not long after the republic was created, and he was trying to prove that point, that we would not allow it to perish from the earth. For most of history, the norm has been dictators, autocrats, bullies, despots, tyrants, cowards who take over our governments. For most of the history of the world. And that's why America is such a miracle. And the greatest example going on right now before our very eyes is Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, which they're just disappearing with a magic wand, as if it doesn't exist, even though it could not be clearer what it's stating. And so, they want to kick it to Congress, so it's going to be up to us on January 6, 2025, to tell the rampaging Trump mobs that he's disqualified.
Okay, and now, what we've been waiting for. Thank you everybody for holding up your signs. It looks really good on camera. Hope you get a chance to watch it. In 2018, David met Goliath. Jessica Denson launched a lawsuit that toppled Trump's illegal NDA. Jessica is the voice for the small and those who feel voiceless. We have a voice through her. We are here because we don't want to let democracy die on our watch. She showed us, Jessica Denson showed us that what others say is impossible is possible with the fight. Jessica Denson, please come up. Yay, Jessica. Let's say it for Jessica. Jessica, thank you so much for coming up.
First of all, I want to thank everybody for coming out in this below freezing temperature in Washington, D.C. to take your place in history, to say, no, democracy is not going to die on my watch, and to demand, absolutely demand peacefully, as we are, that our lawmakers do the same. We will never, never get this moment back. In 2 days,
our lawmakers will decide not just the future of this country, but the future of the free world. They have the tools, the legal mechanism, not only the ability, but the obligation to stop an illegal presidency from destroying centuries of sacrifices for freedom. The only question is, do they have the courage? If we pass this unthinkable threshold into fascism, generations will look back to this very moment to see if they did. You know, a lot of people in Washington and around the country today are honoring the memory of President Jimmy Carter, a wonderful, wonderful, heroic, patriotic man and president that he was. In 1979, he said, "The gap between our citizens and our government has never been so wide. The people are looking for honest answers, not easy answers. Clear leadership, not false claims and evasiveness and politics as usual." You know, yesterday after our first day of this historic gathering, 14th now, it was our day of action, and we went from listening to our wonderful speakers to rallying the members of Congress, the new Congress, the 119th Congress, just hours after they were sworn in, put their hands on a Bible or their book of faith and swore an oath to the Constitution to defend our country against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And I gotta tell you, walking through the halls of Congress, through the Cannon Building and the Russell Senate Building and Dickerson, and it was surreal almost, thinking that we are so close to this unthinkable moment where we may lose it all, seeing all, you know, the men in their nice three-piece, their nice, you know, Capitol suits, and the women in their pretty dresses, and just this sense that you can't, with all the nice clothes and facade and covering in the world, cover the stain that will live on the legacies of these lawmakers, the blood of democracy, if they do not choose the right thing in this moment. Now, we are all here, of course, because of Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, which makes it abundantly clear in black and white that insurrectionists are not qualified to be president of the United States. Donald Trump is an adjudicated insurrectionist. Our nation's preeminent constitutional scholars agree. Lawrence Tribe, Harvard constitutional law scholar, the president of CREW, Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, who brought the Colorado case up through the Supreme Court, agrees that in spite of the ruling in Trump v. Anderson, Donald Trump remains disqualified. The only thing that judicial train wreck of a ruling did, to quote preeminent scholars William Dowd and Michael Paulson, the only thing that it did was remove Colorado's ability to take Trump off the ballot. It did not in any way take away the ability of Congress or the ability of anyone who has sworn an oath to the Constitution to fulfill that oath by rejecting the certification and or the swearing in of an illegal president under Section 3. And I know there has been a lot of debate. There has been really, honestly, unfortunate headwinds from those in the so-called pro-democracy space trying to make it as though the ruling in Trump v. Anderson excluded the ability for Congress to act barring new legislation. And that is just wrong. As some of our earlier speakers mentioned, all of that reference to Section 5 and new legislation being required was dicta. It was not a mandate. It was not an order. When we have a clearly corrupt and compromised Supreme Court with members on that bench who should not have even been ruling in this case, if they have not given us a decision that forecloses the opportunity to save our democracy, why on earth would we foreclose that opportunity for ourselves? The current circumstance is that Donald Trump is an adjudicated insurrectionist, disqualified, and the only mechanism to remove that disability is by a 2/3 vote of both houses. That's it. We don't need new legislation, but we do need each and every member of Congress. And I know there has been a lot of invocation today of Democratic leaders, but I frankly demand all of them who have sworn an oath to the Constitution to uphold that oath and object to the certification of Donald Trump's electors on January 20th. It only takes 1/5 of both houses of Congress. That's only 87 members of the House, which could easily be constituted by the Democrats, and 20 members of the Senate to raise an objection, and a simple majority to sustain it. A simple majority. I want to go back for a minute to the feeling yesterday in those halls of Congress. And it was mixed. We definitely got some pushback, but we also had a lot of receptivity, a lot of understanding of the gravity of this moment, of just how serious a burden is on these lawmakers and how they cannot let us down. And as we were going around, I will tell you, they knew about us. Capitol Hill knows about us. They know that we are here. They know that there are millions of Americans around the country. Maybe not all of them could make it to Washington, D.C. in 30-degree weather, but there is a groundswell movement behind us. There are our ancestors, generations of people who have put their lives on the line for this country and the free world at large. We are not okay with sitting back and not using our founding document, our divinely inspired Constitution, to save it. Are you kidding me? I'll tell you, one of the representatives, or actually now senator, that I ran into yesterday was Adam Schiff. And I've been quoting Senator Schiff a lot recently because I think he said it so perfectly. In the first impeachment, he said, to those who chose to acquit Trump, quote, "Your name will be tied to his with a cord of steel and for all of history. But if you find the courage to stand up to him, to speak the awful truth to his rank falsehood, your place will be among the Davids who took on Goliath. If only you will say, enough." These lawmakers know, every single one of them know. And you know what? I want to talk more about the people I met yesterday, because we had receptive conversations, not just with Democrats, but with Republicans and Republican staffers. And one of them said to me, as I was telling him about our movement, and I told him, I said, you know, I come from your side. I was a former Republican. I'm a person of faith deeply. God, I am nothing without God. And I related that to him and reminded him of how the person that he works for took an oath to the Constitution. And he didn't really need me to say much to him. He was there with me. He was there with us. And he said, I was there that day. I was there on January 6th. Every single one, most of them anyway. We of course have some new ones, but most of them were there on January 6th. They're living a really kind of pathetic and miserable life. I'm talking about the Republicans now having to be these sycophants for this poor, pathetic man who has been lying to himself all his life and just been propped up by all these self-interested power grabbers who have latched on to this caricature of a con man. What a miserable existence to have to be a sycophant to him, to have to undermine the country that you purport to love. And I do believe, in spite of how much I can't stand what they're doing most of the time, I do believe deep, deep inside they love this country. To have to suck up to a character, a sad, really man who really needs a lot of help, criminal, con artist, Russian asset like Donald Trump on a daily basis and pretend that it's in the defense of the greatest country in the world, that city shining on a hill, I'm sure that there's more than a few Republicans that would like to be free from that bondage, because that's exactly what it is. Another representative that I've been thinking about, and we could go through names, and I don't mind doing that. We played Jamie Raskin. We all adore Representative Raskin so much for his allegiance to the Constitution, his unwavering commitment over these years to call it as he sees it and defend the rule of law. Another one that's come to mind recently is Senator Chris Murphy. He gave an excellent speech, I think about a week and a half ago, from the floor of the Senate, talking about just how quickly and unceremoniously our freedom can be taken away from us, how it can just be gone before we know it. He really laid out the stakes, and I know most of those lawmakers in Capitol Hill understand just how much is on the line right now. And it's on the line because we have a man, as I mentioned, who is a vessel for the most corrupt, dangerous, antagonistic forces to America and freedom that this country has ever seen. They helped him get elected. This is not conspiracy. This is confirmed by the FBI. The Treasury Department sanctioned Iran and Russia just days ago for their interference in this election. We had hundreds of bomb threats on election day from Russian servers. This is an anti-American president, which makes sense that someone whose allegiance is not to this country would lead a deadly insurrection to stay in power for his own gain. 4 years ago, Monday, Donald Trump and his duped army of supporters stained the day of January 6th with blood and shame, betrayal and dishonor. His claims of a stolen election were investigated, debunked, and baseless, and he knew that. Yet many lawmakers who were sworn in just yesterday, also in blatant violation of the 14th Amendment, by the way, aided and abetted him. But January 6th does have a legitimate purpose, and we cannot be gaslit into believing that any objection, any legitimate use of January 6th is comparable to what Trump and his duped MAGA army did 4 years ago. You know, this is a really, really important aspect of everything that we're dealing with. We know that the MO of the Republican Party in recent years, probably for way too many and their allies in Russian media, is projection. Accuse your enemy of the very thing that you do. And so what they did 4 years ago was so stain the day, January 6th, that some may be afraid to ever use that day for its legitimate purpose again. That if we ever do anything on January 6th, we will be called election deniers or we will be called a Stop the Steal 2.0. No, there is a legitimate purpose for January 6th. In fact, because there was an insurrection on January 6th 4 years ago, that is the very reason that we must act now to stop that insurrectionist. We cannot allow the fear of optics to stop the rule of law. And I want to say something. We know that any claims that Donald Trump has a mandate from this election are just hogwash. If you take the results at face value, the percentage of votes is less than 50%, but let me give you a number that's even more representative of the sentiment of the American people. If you take the election results at face value, Donald Trump received votes from less than a third of voting eligible adults. Just last week, there was a Washington Post poll that said that 2/3 of Americans object to the pardon of January 6th insurrectionists. Donald Trump is a January 6th insurrectionist. The sentiment in this country is not for impunity for the crimes against democracy that we have all collectively suffered. This is an injustice and a crime to the American people. What happened yesterday in the sentencing, where this man who committed crimes to get into office the first time will not receive jail time, is the most disgusting injustice and slap in the face to the American electorate. So we are not disrespecting an election by invoking the Constitution. And in fact, the founders and the drafters of Section 3 were well aware that majorities and electorates may elect insurrectionists. And they put this in place in spite of that. This is a backstop. It is a constitutional safeguard, a legal necessity to save our republic even when we do not save ourselves. Far from anti-democratic, enforcement of the 14th Amendment against an insurrectionist is the most democratic position any lawmaker could take. It is not a violation of the peaceful transfer of power. It is in defense of the peaceful transfer of power. Now, in a minute here, I'm going to introduce somebody who was deeply, personally affected by Donald Trump's deadly insurrection 4 years ago. Before I do that, I just want to remind everybody of something that you can't say too many times, and that is that there will come a day that anyone supporting Donald Trump will wake up and learn the hard way just how badly they have been duped and used. Just how much their possibly love for freedom, goodwill, faith, maybe they just like someone who's a fighter. They don't like, this spinelessness that we frankly see from the Democrats, and think they see the opposite on the other side, and it's appealing to them, where they're brainwashed by the Russian propaganda of Fox News like I was for 8 years. And they think they're doing the patriotic thing, but one day they're going to learn the very, very hard way, when something affects their lives personally and Donald Trump's interests are going to come first, just how badly they've been used. And nobody learned that more than the supporters of Donald Trump, who were sent to their own deaths 4 years ago. These are some names we don't hear so often. We hear Ashley Babbitt, we know her story. We don't hear these other ones so often. Kevin Greeson, Roseanne Boylan, crushed to death on the steps of the Capitol, Benjamin Phillips. There was a witness at the January 6th hearing who testified with Jason Van Tatenhove, the ex-Oath Keeper. His name was Stephen Ayers, and he's a January 6th defendant. Stephen Ayers' co-defendant, Matthew Perna, took his own life as he was awaiting charges for January 6th. Donald Trump is not just an insurrectionist, illegal president-elect. He's also the leader of a death cult who sends his own supporters to their death and turns them into criminals. He turned hundreds of people into criminals 4 years ago. And the worst crimes, some of the worst crimes that were committed, led to the death of some very brave and patriotic people. As a friend of mine, Sergeant Aquilino Gonell, says, it was like a medieval battle on January 6th. A medieval battle. I can't even, we see the images, but to try to put yourself in that place of those officers, those Capitol Police officers and the Metropolitan Police, who did not have the resources to fight this army of people who came with flagpoles to try to beat them to death and storm our nation to keep Donald Trump in power when he knew he had lost an election. How sick is that? These back the blue, these men and women who put their lives on the line and work in that building with those lawmakers, same lawmakers who stood behind Donald Trump and have so conveniently, 4 years later, forgotten or wanted us to forget just what a betrayal it was. But one of those people, one of those officers, whose name you know well, is Craig Snik. And he lost his life after January 6th because of the actions of Donald J. Trump. He was a kind and loving brother and partner and son. He had some dachshunds and dogs that he loved dearly. Such a kind, kind man. I've gotten to know his brothers, Craig and Ken, over the past year or so. I've had them on my show. And I'm really, really honored today to be joined by Craig Snik, who has been so clear in speaking out against the danger that he knows is coming in a second Donald Trump administration. This is not normal. It can be stopped. And we absolutely must demand peacefully that our lawmakers, our Congress, each and every one of them, and for that matter, anyone involved in the swearing in of an illegal, constitutionally disqualified man understands that their legacy will be forever tied to the demise of democracy. Now is the opportunity for them to do the right thing. Please join me in welcoming Craig Snik.
Hello, my name is Craig Snik. You may have seen me speak at the DNC in Chicago, the VP Harris rally at the Ellipse, which was the same place Trump incited his followers into violence. Seen me on television, read about me in the news, or possibly read one of my own published pieces. The reason I'm here today is because I believe Donald Trump is an illegitimate president, should never be allowed to be put into office again. I am the oldest brother of Officer Craig Snik of the United States Capitol Police, who was killed in the line of duty due to injuries he received while protecting the Capitol and all within it during Trump's insurrection on January 6th. My brother was not the only one who died as a result of Trump's actions that day. Other officers who were there and died at their own hand later on were Officers Gunther Hashida, Kyle DeFreytag, Howard Liebengood, and Jeffrey Smith, all who took their own lives in days following the attack. No doubt despondent over the ferocity of the attack by fellow citizens, followed by the utter lack of action by those in power to do anything about holding those who engineered and executed the January 6th insurrection responsible for their actions. My brother Brian dedicated his life to serving the public, first as a security police officer in the New Jersey Air National Guard, where he was called to serve in the aftermath of the September 11th attacks on our nation, and later as a United States Capitol Police officer. He always believed in doing the right thing and took his oaths of duty seriously. He was quiet, reserved, and dedicated to his nation, but none of that mattered during the insurrection, where he and his fellow officers were outnumbered by over 50 to 1. We were worried about his safety while he was serving in the Middle East, and were relieved when he returned home to the civilized United States, where he died due to the actions of civilized American citizens. The insurrection was far from the peaceful protest that some Republican members of Congress claimed it to be. While I was thankfully not there, I have spoken to several people who were, none of whom came away from that day unscathed in some manner. Many of the officers who fought that day received career-ending injuries. Some, like Officer Aquilina Ganell and Michael Fanone, were beaten nearly to death. Others will bear the literal scars from that day for the rest of their lives. The same people who felt the pull to serve our nation by enforcing our laws, keeping the peace, and helping those in need were the same ones whose Trump's crowds turned on. Why? Because Trump told them to. The supposedly law and order MAGA crowd chose to turn on the very people they claim they support that day. After the initial shock of losing my kid brother, only 42 years old when he died, and 10 years my junior, I have been traveling down a long, dark road filled with grief, pain, anger, disgust, and a deep sadness for not only the loss of my brother, but the effect his death had on each of my family members, friends, and my country. I continue to suffer from PTSD, have developed health issues following that fateful day, and I have days where I simply don't want to get out of bed. But in spite of that, I continue to work to support my family, keep my brother's memory alive and his sacrifice, and do what I can to keep morally corrupt people like Trump out of power. Brian's death affected my entire family. My father, now 85, lost a spark that enabled him to go skiing into his early 80s, and which allowed him to remain active until that fateful day when he lost his youngest son due to the violence of January 6th. My mother, whose age I won't reveal as it's not polite to divulge, suffered, like myself, with health issues related to the shock of losing Brian, especially in such a violent fashion. My brother Ken, 2 years my junior, decided his escape, so to speak, is to work every hour he can, as work takes his mind off of everything that happened. My wife, who often spoke to Brian, was devastated when she learned of his death, and has had the added burden of supporting the new, not-so-improved me since that time in spite of her own ailments. What keeps us going is the tremendous outreach of many good people from all over the country and the world who have lent their support to my family, many of them strangers, but all of whom were shocked and disgusted by the riot that Trump incited and the deep scar it has left on our nation. My family has received boxes of letters and heartfelt, often handmade gifts from people both home and abroad, expressing their sympathy for our loss and gratitude for Brian's service. We have made some new friends, including members of Congress, along with people from all walks of life who found the insurrection engineered and incited by Trump to be appalling. I am thankful for this outreach and support, as without it, my family would be in an even darker place. Excuse my frozen fingers. Every day, I see Brian's portrait when I come down the stairs of my home, reminding me of his loss and the poor excuse of a man who caused it. I am reminded again every time I speak to my parents, who ever since Brian's death continue to have a tone of sadness in their voice from the death of the youngest son, who should have had many years ahead of him. Before Brian's death, I would have never wanted to stand on a stage such as this, advocating that our elected leaders do what is right instead of protecting those who commit the worst of crimes against our nation. Mitch McConnell, Kevin McCarthy, and a long list of others created their own reality and tried to bury the truth after some false attempts to call out Trump for his actions. When push came to shove, those loyal to Trump supported him, knowing that his actions were against every word of their own oaths of office. When the Select Committee to investigate the January 6th attack on the United States Capitol was formed to find the root cause of the first violent insurrection in our nation's history since the Civil War, many members of Congress refused to participate and actively blocked any move to find the truth. They decided that a bipartisan committee to find the truth might shine light into the dark recesses of their ranks and expose them for what they are, spineless cowards who put their loyalty to Trump over their oath of office. I have little faith that the same people who worked so hard to prevent an investigation into one of the darkest events in U.S. history will do what is right and block Trump from ascending to power, but I can hope, as can we all. I urge all of you who are listening to contact your congressional representatives and senators and demand them to act to prevent Trump from ever holding power again. Trump is the worst possible person to have as our president. Even his own niece has said that Mr. Trump has no redeeming qualities, not one, but we as a nation refuse to listen. People have short memories and quickly forgot that Trump brought 4 years of complete chaos as a leader and has successfully torn the very fabric of our country apart, not to improve it, as he claimed, but for his own personal gain. His leadership resulted in over 1 million deaths during COVID, with some of the highest mortality rates of any nation. The same leadership also caused the biggest crash in our economy since the Great Depression. But many of us have not forgotten. The chaos Mr. Trump is causing months before he takes office is stunning. His picks for cabinet positions are not based on character, experience, or intelligence. They are based on loyalty to himself. And in many cases, it seems a record of debauchery and questionable moral character helps if you desire such a position. The list is long, but former Congressman Matt Gaetz being chosen as Attorney General is just one example. Our nation, like many others, is not perfect, and difference of opinion abound about how we should move forward. Left, right, and center, until Trump, all worked more or less to strengthen our nation, albeit with differing views on how to do so. In spite of the many differences, we managed to find common ground on issues which benefited far more people than they have harmed. This ability to find compromise gave us the ability to grow stronger and more prosperous as a nation. Trump claims he believes this, but the reality is, Mr. Trump only truly believes in one person, himself, as proven over and over again by his actions. The idea of vengeance against anyone who disagrees with him and his calls to rescind the U.S. Constitution if he deems it necessary. The very document he swore an oath to defend when he first took office is the same one he wants to effectively burn as it limits his potential power, as it was designed to do for all presidents. Mr. Trump broke that oath often through his continuous erosion of our social safety net, calls for loosening any and all regulations that have given us things like overtime pay, clean air, clean water, more affordable health care with no pre-existing condition clauses, and equal rights for those of us who are different in some way. If Trump is given the ability to do so, all of this would go back to a time where people couldn't vote due to the color of their skin, their religious beliefs, or their gender. We must do better. Our founding fathers never envisioned someone as flawed as Trump running for, never mind winning the Oval Office, and did not make provisions to prevent a convicted felon from doing so. They did, however, provide a mechanism to prevent someone like Trump from taking office in the form of Article 3 of the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. I came here today to urge Congress to do its job and block Mr. Trump from taking office a few short weeks from now. They can do this by upholding their oath of office and acting under Article 3 of the 14th Amendment, which clearly states that no person who is involved in trying to overthrow our government can hold any office, state or federal. Members of Congress had numerous opportunities to act on this, but have failed to do so at every step and continue reneging on their own oath to shield and defend the Constitution from all enemies, foreign or domestic. Mr. Trump and many of the people who aided him certainly fit the category of domestic enemies of the United States, and certainly cannot be trusted to carry out their duties in a proper manner in the next administration. Congress should have impeached Trump after the insurrection, but Mr. McConnell refused to uphold his own oath and made sure that Trump was protected from the repercussions from his treasonous acts, leading up to and during the insurrection. After Mr. McConnell made sure Trump would remain free and unfettered, Judge Cannon made sure that Trump again remained free after another act of treason, that of stealing classified documents from the White House and storing them in the basement at Mar-a-Lago. Unfortunately, that was the end of my speech. What I can say is I am still saddened, disheartened, and believe Trump should never be allowed to hold power again. The damage he has caused to our nation, the continuous strife he causes, the utter chaos, division, it's wrong. It should never have taken place. We have had tumultuous times in our country. We have gone through a civil war. We've gone through the civil rights movement, and it has made us better and stronger over time. Again, we had the means to prevent Trump from retaking the White House, but I fear that we as a people do not have the will. Prove me wrong. Call your members of Congress now and tell them to do their job and block Trump from ever taking power. They have the tool to do so using the 14th Amendment of our Constitution, the very document our nation was founded on and which Mr. Trump wants to do away with. Keep up the peaceful fight against the worst possible person to ever hold office in the history of our nation, And remember that your own actions will have consequences for your family and friends. Do not sit idly by while Trump enacts his unethical, immoral, and unconstitutional plans during a second term in office. Everybody has some safe travels and get home safely tonight on this cold, bitter cold evening.
Thank you so much, everybody, for sticking around in this freezing weather. You guys are absolute champions. Everybody watching this needs to know what champions these people are for being here today. Everybody that showed up today and yesterday and will join us tomorrow. It is truly bitter cold out here, so thank you so much. I want to welcome someone who is one of the people who reached out to me when I put that call out on my show about 2 weeks ago, to organize this in record time. And I have to say, the most amazing group of people with their own unique skill sets and the skill sets that we needed to put this on came to the table. It was truly, truly divine. One of them is Josh Johnson. He is the pastor of Envision Church in West Hollywood, California. He is an LGBTQIA advocate. He is a passionate defender of democracy. He loves this country so much. He understands so deeply what is at stake. And he brings his Christian background, which is something that we share to this fight, his understanding of the spiritual needs of this country and what has to be done to defend the rule of law. So please join me in welcoming Josh Johnson.
Thank you, Jessica. Some of the stories she was mentioning earlier, I was with her in those halls and never thought we would be there, but what a life-changing experience with people in the fight. I want you all to take a deep breath. I know it's hard to do that where we are. Take a deep breath. And you feel that cold air rushing into your lungs, but you are alive. You are standing in this place, in this time, in this America. And still something inside you, something immense, something immeasurable, something immovable brought you here today. And just take a look around you, and please hear me when I say this, people. Hear me when I say that the people standing around you are no longer strangers. They are now a part of your story, and you are a part of their story. You are a part of this story. So you're no longer strangers here. We are in this historic moment that we all stand in now together. Yes, we are breathing this same air. We are feeling the same cold, but we are also holding the same hope. And you, my friends, my brothers and my sisters and my non-binary siblings out there, yes, you are exactly where you are meant to be right here, right now, in this moment. I know the last 60 days, and it is 60 days today, have been ones that have not been easy. In fact, if you're like me, the last 8.5 weeks have been some of the hardest, heaviest, and most hopeless, seemingly helpless through which I have ever lived. And I know so many of us are tired, right? Anybody tired? I'm tired. So many of us are enraged and so many are outraged. And I know that some of us wonder if it will ever really change. And maybe you've rallied before, maybe you protested before and marched before, but this time there's something different about this time. Oh, this time there's a certain sense of looming finality and failure and fraud and filthiness. And if you're like me, maybe you shouted and you've prayed and fought and cried, and yet the weight of this adjudicated injustice and this moral malpractice and this ethical erosion still presses you down. But even in all of this, we know that Americans and America cannot be defined by elections or leaders, nor can it be reduced to bureaucratic buildings or, massive monuments that we stand around today, but rather authenticated by laws written in foundational ink, or a flag that somehow still finds the strength and the will to fly despite being stained by the sins of those who swore to protect it. America is the mother who works 2 jobs and still makes it home in time to sing her babies to sleep. America is the elders, some of them standing among us now, who have marched 50 years ago and showed up again today to march. America herself is the dreamer. America is the builder, the healer, the protector, the trailblazer, the winner. America is the stranger who invites you inside from even the coldest winter day just to warm your hands and hear your heart. And America, our America, is found in the hands of the citizens right here today. Those who made the conscious decision to sign up and show up and step up. Finding the voices of the ones that I've heard today. I've heard some very powerful, very passionate voices today that refuse to be silenced, right? We refuse to be silenced. It is found in the hearts of the people here today that refuse to stop loving and living for liberty. Rebels and warriors who defend, develop, discover, dare, dream, disrupt, defy, and who will not accept defeat. Yes, as we stand here today, I cannot help but think of these steps here, all of these steps that are leading up and leading down, that the steps that are right here beneath our feet, these very steps worn smooth by history, y'all, by generations and who've stood up where we stand right now. And they are more than stone. They are more than just marble. They are more than just a place to gather. No, what you see, that these steps are a testament to a movement, to progress, to people who have never stopped climbing. These steps have carried the weight of struggle, of suffering, and of dreams deferred, but never denied. And these steps, these very steps that are beneath our feet on this cold winter January day in 2025, have also carried the feet of those who would try to turn us back. Those who would seek democracy as a game to be rigged. Those who believe that power is theirs to keep rather than to serve. But listen to me now, America does not move backwards. America does not have to stay frozen in place. America does not have to sit quietly when the promise of our democracy is at stake. No, you know what? America, the real Americans that I stand in front and around of today, those Americans keep climbing. They keep coming up the stairs. They take the next step. Americans, even when the weight is unbearable, they take the next step. Real Americans, even when the forces are against them, all forces say no, all forces say stop. They keep moving up to the next step. Everything we have seen, everything we have lived through, everything that we have fought for Congress, elected representatives, are you going to take the next step to serve and save us? Well, can you do that? Can you uphold your oath, keep your word, do your job that you were elected to do? Oh, come on, somebody. We can go to church today. It's Saturday. We can go to church. Come on, and you implore our regular representatives, hear us, see us, know that we are holding you accountable. And this is more than physical. This is a spiritual battle. So know that we are in it on all sides, up, down, left, and right, and above and beyond. We take this step not because it is easy, but because it is necessary. We take the steps. Somebody say, take the step. Say, take the step. Amen. We want to take the next step. And honestly, I feel compelled to share with y'all just lately that I can't help but think of those patriotic melodies, you know, the ones we all learned either in the elementary classrooms or maybe in a church basement growing up, and those songs that maybe many times we have taken for granted, right? That we just sang because the music was on and we knew the words, and maybe you've taken them for granted or even disregarded them even as so. But yes, those same songs somehow now elevate my emotions. They seem more critical and poignant and speaking to something greater than just outside of myself. Yes, they elevate me and have taken on such a greater significance. And those lyrics that describe the majesty of our country. Look around you at the majesty just in this small space of what we call our country. The majesty, those anthems of beautiful, spacious skies and amber waves of grain, and seeking for God to shed his grace on us. Oh, how we need that grace. I don't know about you, but I have been desperate for that grace. How I have prayed for that grace. Yes, those songs like that sing of America the Beautiful. And I just want to tell you that what I've come to know in this struggle, this strife, this confusion of the last several weeks is that I really believe I know what makes America beautiful. And it's not so much those mountains nor those spacious skies or those fields or plains. What makes America bold, what makes America brave, what makes America a blessing, what makes America beautiful is you. What makes America beautiful is this. What makes America beautiful is us. That is what makes America beautiful. It is us. It is us. Say, it is us. Say, it is us. It is us. It is us. It has always been us, and it will always be us that makes America beautiful. Because when I look out at this picture that I see in front to the north, south, east, and the west of me right here in this iconic scenery, iconic, unprecedented moments of our lives together here on this day. This grace-filled image. One that is unshakable, unbreakable, and undeniable. I can tell you that it is the most beautiful thing that I have ever seen. And my eyes have seen the coming of the glory of the Lord. Y'all know that. As I close here today, I want you to know that you're not here just for you and your family, but also for the ones who couldn't make it today, and those who came before us, and those who will come after us. And as you stand, would you just, as we are all now family, would you just grab the hand or the covered hand of the person next to you, the people that are standing next to you. Feel the warmth in their hands, and their hand in yours, and just know that this is strength. This is hope. And this is beautiful. This is beautiful. And I was speaking of those melodies that we all hold so dear, and that mean even more now than we ever imagined that they could mean. And they've not only become an anthem and a theme for me in my life, but they've become a prayer. So would you join me? Would y'all join me? And you can make this, but you can make it your anthem. You can make it your theme, your prayer. But just think of where we stand today on these steps, where we have come and where we can go if they will hear us and see us and save us as we implore them. God bless America. Y'all help me. Land, stand beside her and guide her with the light from above, from the mountains. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, our home, sweet home. Love one another.